A bright blue spark leaped from Leo's high-tech smartwatch, zapping him right on the wrist. "Yo!" Leo yelped, hopping on one foot. "My watch just bit me!" Before his hiking partner could laugh, a strange sound echoed from her backpack. Kiara gasped as her curly brown hair suddenly stood straight up in the air, transforming into a perfectly round anti-gravity sphere of frizz. Leo?" Kiara whispered, her eyes wide as she stared at her own hands. Tiny, harmless orange sparks were dancing between her fingertips like mini lightning bugs. "I think the mountain is trying to turn us into human toast." Every piece of technology they owned was humming, vibrating, and about to go completely haywire. They had just walked right into a giant real-world battery, and it was turned on high. Only 3 hours earlier, Leo and Kiara had felt completely unstoppable. As geology students from the University of Texas, they were spending their summer break exploring the most beautiful places on Earth. Today's adventure was Garajonay National Park, an ancient forest on the misty, volcanic island of La Gomera, Spain. "We have the best gear money can buy," Leo had bragged, tapping his digital GPS screen. It showed their exact coordinates down to the millimeter. "We've got satellite maps, digital cameras, and smartwatches that track our heartbeats. We couldn't get lost if we tried." Kiara had smiled, adjusting her heavy camera strap. "And with our geology skills, we'll map these volcanic rock formations in no time. Nothing can stop us." They had marched into the damp, green forest, surrounded by twisted heather trees and dripping moss, feeling like high-tech explorers in a prehistoric wonderland. By afternoon, the bright blue sky vanished. A warm, eerie wind began to howl through the trees. It was a CALIMA, a massive dust storm blowing all the way across the Atlantic Ocean from the Sahara Desert. Within minutes, the air turned a spooky, glowing crimson. The dust became so thick that the sun looked like a dull copper coin. Then, the clouds opened up. But instead of normal rain, a heavy rust-red mud began to pour from the sky. "It's blood rain!" Kiara shouted over the wind, wiping the gooey red paste from her jacket. Then the energy hit. The air felt heavy and thick, like a warm wool blanket. Pop! Leo's smartphone hissed in his pocket, puffing out a tiny trail of gray, burnt popcorn-scented smoke. It went completely black. "My phone!" Leo cried. Fizzle pop! Kiara's digital camera screen glitched into a rainbow of static and died. The backup battery packs in their bags began to warm up and hiss. The high-tech GPS screen gave one final sad beep and shut down forever. All of their invincible technology was totally fried. As billions of dry Saharan sand particles, which were loaded with natural iron oxide and quartz silica, slammed into each other in the 50-mile-per-hour winds, they began rubbing electrons off one another. It was like rubbing a giant balloon on a giant carpet. This friction created a massive buildup of static electricity, a scientific process called tribocharging. When the wet water mixed with the dry metallic iron dust, it turned the red mud into a superconductive liquid electrolyte. Because the towering volcanic cliffs around them were ungrounded, this wet metallic mud coated the rocks, connecting the charged sky directly to the canyon floor. The entire valley had literally transformed into a giant natural battery box. The air was buzzing with an intense electrostatic field that instantly melted the delicate microchips inside their digital devices. To make matters worse, they were stuck on a steep, slippery ledge in a thick red fog. Leo tried to scream for help, but his voice was swallowed instantly. The heavy, dense sand cloud acted like a giant acoustic sponge, absorbing their vocal cord sound waves before they could travel even 10 feet. They were trapped, silent, and completely offline. Just as Kiara began to panic, a sound cut through the roaring wind. It wasn't a shout. It was a sharp, piercing sound that sliced through the thick red air like a laser beam. Leo and Kiara both jumped. What was that? Kiara gasped. Out of the swirling red dust stepped a local teenager. He was 16 years old, wearing a bright yellow raincoat, mud boots, and a big grin. His name was Mateo. Mateo didn't have a phone, a walkie-talkie, or a GPS. Instead, he simply pressed his knuckles against his lips, puffed out his cheeks, and let out another dazzling birdsong-like whistle. Fut! Mateo was speaking Silbo Gomero, the famous ancient whistling language of La Gomera. While Leo and Kiara's fancy Texas technology had been completely destroyed by the mountain's natural battery, Mateo's whistle talk was completely immune to electricity. High-frequency whistles don't use wires, batteries, or silicone chips. Even better, their short, tight sound wavelengths didn't get absorbed by the sandstorm. Instead, they bounced off the canyon walls and sliced right through the thick red fog. Mateo wasn't just making random noise. He was having a full-speed conversation with rescue rangers located over 2 miles. "You guys look a little damp," Mateo said with a warm laugh, speaking in Spanish after he finished his whistle. "My friends at the base station say the path ahead is flooded with conductive mud, but the trail behind us is safe. Come on, follow me." With his knuckles to his lips, Mateo whistled out their progress to the rescue team. "Bee-twee," he whistled, which meant, "We are moving down the eastern steps now." A faint, musical whistle echoed back from far below through the red storm. "Pee-loo, we are waiting with warm blankets." Mateo guided the 2 college students down the slippery volcanic steps. Whenever they reached a sparkling puddle of conductive red mud, Mateo would wave his arms, whistle to his friends, and point them to a safe, dry rock path. By listening to the pitch and echo of his own whistles, Mateo could even tell where the cliffs were without being able to see through the fog. Step by step, whistle by whistle, they made their way down the mountain until the thick red dust finally began to clear. At last, they stepped into the warm, dry safety of the ranger station at the base of the valley. Later that evening, wrapped in warm, cozy blankets and sipping hot cocoa, Leo stared at his melted, useless smartphone. He couldn't help but laugh in total amazement. "We built our whole modern world on tiny silicone chips," Leo said, shaking his head. "But when the planet decides to short-circuit our gadgets, ancient human cleverness is the ultimate backup drive." Kiara smiled, watching Mateo whistle a cheerful tune to a sleepy sheepdog outside. It just goes to show that the smartest, most powerful tool on Earth isn't the glowing screen in your pocket. It's the wonderful brain inside your head.